Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clay, and I am the Bucks believer. Unfortunately, today I'm making a video that, quite frankly, I really wish that I didn't have to make. And that is covering the subject of Khris Middleton being an all-star snub. Now, Middleton is a player who I think was quite deserving of receiving his third consecutive All-Star berth, and it just did not happen for him this year. He's one of the most efficient scorers in the entire NBA, as he is shooting very close to 50, 40, 90 for the second consecutive season, although I do think he's a little bit short of that right now, as he's not quite 90% from the free throw line or 50% from the field, but obviously he's one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA, and he is doing that on pretty solid volume, as he's also averaging 20 points per game as the second leading scorer on the Bucks. He also has really improved his playmaking, as he's gotten his assists per game up to 6, and watching him play, you can visually tell that he's able to make some really solid reads and passes out of the Bucks half-court offense, and that has really helped this team blossom on that end of the court from being a top 10 unit into a legit top 3 unit in the league. Middleton, I think, was deserving of making it over a couple guys who did end up making the team out of the Eastern Conference. I do think the coaches got 5 of the reserves completely right, as I think James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine were all quite deserving, and you could probably say that Julius Randle was as well, but the guy that I really take exception to making it is Ben Simmons. When you look at the numbers, I think that it is indisputable that Middleton has had a better start to the season than Ben has. There's a few reasons why I can understand where the coaches were coming from when they did elect Simmons onto this team over Middleton, and I'll break those down in a little bit, but I do think that Middleton's argument is stronger, and the rebuttals that I'll have for the Simmons case, in my opinion, are better than the case itself. So we'll start off by talking about why Middleton shouldn't have made the All-Star team. The number one reason that I came up with was his slump so far in February. Middleton has not really scored the ball at the same level, and his efficiency has really taken a drop off from where it was before. He's still shooting 48, 42, 84 splits from the field, but obviously that's not quite up to his standard of being a 50, 40, 90 guy, and that has really limited how effective he's been able to be in the box score statistics, as in February he's averaging just 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. However, I don't think that this is a convincing enough argument to drop Khris off of the All-Star team, because he's still playing pretty well, still playing at a near All-Star level, and through the first month and a half, 2 months of the season, Khris had established himself as something like a top 15 player with the way that he was playing. So is this slump enough to completely take him off the team? In my opinion, no, it's not. Especially when you add in the fact that his main competitor for this final spot in Ben Simmons also had a pretty awful slump of his own earlier this season, as he came out of the gates turnover prone, not making the same impact on defense, and looking very hesitant to shoot the ball, as he averaged just 13 points over the first month and a half of the season before he rebounded a little bit over the past month or so. But if you're making the debate that Middleton shouldn't have made the All-Star team because of his recent slump, well, I just don't think that that's convincing enough, especially with Simmons' slump of his own. The next argument I came up with of why people may say that Khris shouldn't have made the All-Star team is because of team success. And that argument does make some sense. The Sixers are currently the better team as they lead the Eastern Conference and are 2 games ahead of the Bucks. However, I think that sometimes if you just look at a team's record, it will overrate what the stuff that the players on that team are doing. For example, Ben Simmons on the Sixers have played a very easy schedule thus far, and for the most part have had their 2 best players on the court almost every game in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. With the rest of their players, some of the guys who are further down the bench, they have had to sit out of games, but for the most part, the top two guys have been in the lineup for Philadelphia. The same cannot be said for Milwaukee, who has had a pretty challenging schedule, especially with the 7-game road trip that they had just a couple weeks ago, in which they had to take on Utah, Denver, Phoenix, and that didn't go particularly well for them. And if it weren't for their slump over that road trip, well, I think that the Bucks probably would be right there with Philadelphia for first place. The advanced statistics also say that the Bucks have been the better team out of the two so far this season, as according to Clean the Glass's net rating that cancels out garbage time minutes, the Bucks are second in the NBA in net rating, while the Sixers are all the way down at 9th. So although their records might say that the Sixers have been the better team so far, when you dig a little bit deeper, the Bucks have perhaps been the better team. So I don't think that the team success argument is too convincing in Ben Simmons' favor. I do think he gets a little bit of an edge, but I still don't think that it's enough to cancel out what Middleton has done. The last argument for Simmons that I came up with is got to be the defense. Simmons has been genuinely one of the 5 best defensive players in the entire NBA so far, and this is one that I really can't argue about too much. Ben Simmons is a far better defender than Khris Middleton, and I don't think that that's quite disputable whatsoever. However, it can be taken into consideration the impact that those guys have had on their team's defense. Right now, the Sixers are the better defensive team, as they are sitting at 9th in the NBA in defensive rating, while the Bucks are at 12th. But is that gap significant enough to really put the seal on this decision? I don't quite think so. And Middleton being a better shooter, a better scorer in general, an improved passer, that makes that gap a little bit smaller, and Middleton just playing better so far this year than Simmons has. I mean, I'm at a loss for words at this point. I think that I've made my case, and I think that it's a pretty strong case. I'm disappointed that Khris won't be in Atlanta this year, because I do think that he was deserving of one of those all-star spots, but I hope that this fires him back up and he can break out of this slump soon, get back on track, and perhaps make a run at an all-NBA team, which is certainly possible. Players have done it in the past where they make an all-NBA team but not an all-star team, and I hope that Khris can really stick it to him and show that he was deserving of making this team. Let me know what your thoughts were in the comment section down below. Do you think that Khris should have made the all-star team, or do you think that Ben Simmons was more deserving? Let me know. I also could have gone a little deeper and provided my reasoning for why Middleton should have made it over Julius Randle, although I do think Randle has had a great season so far the Knicks, so I decided to go from the Simmons side instead. But I think Middleton should have made the team. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you enjoy all things Bucks. This is the place for you. That's going to be it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you all again very soon.